On today's episode of Today in World War II, the Soviets penetrate the Mannerheim Line, which is bad news for Finland. Churchill orders his commanding general in North Africa, Wavell, to prioritize Greece over North Africa, where Rommel had just landed. Not sure about that move. British paratroopers raid a aqueduct in Italy. The Allies land further along the coast on Papua New Guinea, and finally, the Axis attempt to break out of an encirclement by the Soviets near Budapest, Hungary, ends in fiasco. Let's get started. Okay, so on February 10th, 1940, Soviet troops finally penetrated the the Finnish defensive line, the Mannerheim Line. They crossed the Munasuo Swamp and they went into the Merki sector. By the way, just for some trivia, Munasuo, actually, if you translate it from Finnish directly to English, it means egg swamp. So, apropos of nothing, I suppose. But yes, this has been building for a while. And I've been foreshadowing this in my previous videos. Now it's starting to come through. They, no defensive wall line can stand up to 400 artillery pieces firing shells at them nonstop. Plus, you've got 12 divisions, which is a minimum of 120,000 men waiting to exploit it. I mean, and you get no army could have stood up to that, including the Finns, especially the Finns, because let's face it, there was a small country. Their army was minuscule compared to the Soviets. So this was not unexpected, and this was the first domino that falls, and they're going to start falling more and more. A little bit, spoiler alert. Uh, but again, the Finns' strategy was survival and to keep some of their freedom. They wanted an armistice. They were trying to make it as difficult as possible for the Soviets, so it would be motivate the Soviets to negotiate with them instead of rolling over. When you roll over to an authoritarian regime, and that's it. You're done. So good for the Finns for putting up such a hard fight and understanding this very well. And I hope that you understand the importance of subscribing to my channel. If you just came upon this video, came on your feed, someone told you about it, it's the first video you're watching, great, welcome. And I would love for you to have to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell that will notify you whenever I have a new video that's dropping on my YouTube channel. That way you get notified and you can watch it and enjoy the content I'm putting out. Thanks. On February 10th, 1941, the British Prime Minister Churchill ordered that his commanding general in North Africa, General Wavell, prioritize the campaign in Greece at the expense of North Africa. Uh, Look, hindsight's always 2020. Hitler didn't know, sorry, what am I saying? Hitler. Churchill didn't know just how good Rommel was going to be. I get that. And I understand that Hitler, why do I keep saying Hitler when it's Churchill? It must be crazy. Churchill wanted to help Greece. It's an ally. He wanted to keep a foothold in the Balkans. I get all that. But my point is that if you look at it from a strategic point of view, what can you least afford to lose? Greece or the Suez Canal? I think if you make your decisions based on that fundamental question, then you keep the majority of your forces in North Africa, especially after Operation Compass had pushed the Italians all the way back to the El Aguila line and freed Egypt from the immediate danger of having the Suez Canal captured. Now you knew, the British knew that the Germans were going to send troops in. They knew that was going to happen. They didn't know how good they were going to be, but they knew that was coming. So I think it would have been more prudent on their part to not push their chips to the table and support Greece like they did. And we'll follow this in the videos to come, but we're going to see how that wasn't the best decision that Churchill ever made in his life, okay? But anyway, today was the day when he made what I think is an ill-fated decision. But it will never be an ill-fated decision on your part if you like this video and leave a comment. If you watch this, if you're a subscriber and you watch these things every day, you're probably getting bored of me saying this, but I'm not directing that towards you. I know you're doing the right thing every day. I'm directing it for people that are just new, maybe to watch my video the first time. If you like, do a thumbs up on the video below and you leave a comment, just a basic comment, then it will help my channel grow. The algorithm loves engagement. So that's all I'm asking for. Just do me a solid, please, okay? Thanks. On February 10th, 1941, the very first German convoy that was carrying Russian troops, am I saying Russian troops? German troops, and their tanks, their supplies, trucks, the whole 9 yards, left Palermo, Sicily on its way to Tripoli, Libya, which was the Axis main port in North Africa. It was escorted by an Italian destroyer and three torpedo boats. There was not much keeping the Afrika Korps from getting to Tripoli when they made the decision in early 41 to send the Afrika Korps to North Africa. So this convoy got through with no problem. Now it was going to be more and more difficult as the war in North Africa started heating up again. And, those of you who watched my videos for a while, you know what I'm going to say right now. What's the magic word? It begins with an M, Malta. Okay. Once again, they are making the fundamental mistake that they're going to be able to supply, all these troops and tanks and so on and so forth from Italy, from Sicily, from Italy, you know, sailing past Malta. And if Malta still is an active base, it has bombers, has fighters, has submarines, it has surface vessels, that's going to be problematic. How many of your ships are going to make it through? And this was a thorn in Rommel's side, the logistics and the lack of logistics, I would say, ultimately was what caused him to lose the war in North Africa. It wasn't British strategic genius, although, there's a lot of factors involved, but I would say number one on the list is the fact that Malta was there to continually pick off and limit the amount of supplies and logistics going to Rommel in that theater. On February 10th, 1942, the British decided to launch an operation called Operations Colossus. They landed some paratroopers in Calitri, Italy. Their goal was to destroy an aqueduct, thinking, this was an aqueduct that supplied fresh water to the region, and they felt like this would hamper the Italian war effort if they were able to do a semi-commando raid. These weren't commandos; these were just paras. Anyway, they dropped as what normally happened in World War II when parachute drops. They did not land in their drop zone, but they were able to reach their destination, and they actually pulled it off. They destroyed the aqueduct, or at least damaged it very severely. Here's the problem. First of all, they were all recaptured almost immediately. They took some poor Italian along with them to be an interpreter, and he was captured with them, and they tortured the poor bastard and killed him. One paratrooper did manage to escape, which was good, but the rest, that was it. They spent the rest of the war in a POW camp. What was the result of the raid? Well, the Italians were able to repair the aqueduct before the fresh water ran out. So it really didn't do much to affect the Italian war effort whatsoever. Now, it's said that it was a great morale booster for the British population, for the British people, but you also threw away some very highly trained paratroopers on a one-way mission. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that logic, but hey, you know what? I didn't command the British forces in North Africa in 1941, so who am I to say, right? On February 10th, 1944, the Allies landed at Saidor, Papua New Guinea. This was part of Operation Dexterity, and it was part of MacArthur's jumping point. I don't know if that's really an elegant way to say it, but MacArthur had a brilliant strategy of never attacking the Japanese where they're strong, only attacking them when they're weak, cutting off um, their strongholds, not wasting men and material to reduce them, because that's what the Japanese wanted. The Japanese wanted a long war of attrition to bleed as much Allied blood as possible in the hopes that the Allied population would demand a negotiated surrender because they were tired of all their sons and husbands and brothers dying. MacArthur was a little too smart for them, so he kept leapfrogging, and that was the word I was looking for, leapfrog strategy. This is the same thing. Okay, so he leapfrogs, the strong points in New Guinea. He lands here, and he captured an air force. And that meant that now 6,000 troops, 6,000 Japanese troops were cut off. And so he was able to reduce them or starve them on the vine. And what was happening was until the end of the war, the Japanese would have to, send in submarines to supply them to keep them going. But their overall effectiveness or usefulness to the Japanese high command was nil at that point once they got bypassed. MacArthur, heck of a general, you know, egomaniac, didn't like the Marines, but hell of a general. And finally, on February 10th, 1945, there was about 16,000 Axis troops. That was Germans, and what are the satellite countries that still had troops there? Romania, Italy. I think Spain had pulled theirs out by now, but they were encircled by the Soviets near Budapest, and they decided they were going to make one last gasp attempt to break out and rejoin German forces, but it didn't work. And in fact, it failed miserably. About 16,000 of those troops either were captured or were killed. So, yeah, the end always comes to evil regimes, and this was part of that. So I want to thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow.